So here's just a quick little overview of what you should focus on while doing your exercises. So remember to maintain your posture throughout each exercise. Your scapula should always be retracted and depressed, and your chest up and lifted. Your spine in neutral, your neck in line with your back, and the abdominals strong and contracted. If you are standing, you should be in the power position, feet about shoulder width apart and knees slightly bent. Every movement should be under control. Exhale on effort and inhale on release. For the bench press, lie flat on the bench, body in neutral position with your eyes directly under the bar. Allow your back to have a natural arch, but do not hyperextend. Your feet should be firmly planted on the floor or on the bench. If you are not tall enough, adjust. Place your hands on the bar slightly wider than shoulder width, making sure it's wide enough to have vertical forearms at the bottom of the lift. Hold the bar in the base of your palms and wrap your thumbs around the bar. Lift the bar up and bring it to about your nipple line. Slowly lower down to your chest, keeping wrists in neutral, and placed over your elbow joints. Retract and depress the scapula and keep the chest lifted. Exhale on the concentric phase and inhale on the eccentric. The shoulder is horizontally adducting and the elbow is extending, so the agonists of this exercise are the pectoral major and the anterior deltoids. Next up is the seated row. This is a very good postural exercise. I recommend using the V-grip, attach it to the cable, and set an appropriate amount of weight that you're comfortable with. Once that's done, mount the machine and move back to a comfortable position. Make sure that your knees are slightly bent. Lean in and grab the V-grip and pull at about the midsection of your stomach area, making sure you're retracted and depressed your scapula and you're keeping your chest lifted. Make sure you do not lock out the elbows or knee joints during this exercise. Inhale on the concentric phase and exhale on the eccentric. To finish, scoot the butt closer to the machine, then release the cable. During this exercise, the shoulders are extending and the elbows are extending as well. So that means the agonists of this exercise are the latissimus dorsi, the rhomboids, and the trapezius muscles. For the lat pull downs, start by adjusting the seat so that the hips and knees are at approximately a 90-degree angle. Once you're in position, stand up and grab the bar at a comfortable width. Sit back down and lean back about 20 degrees, keeping the core tight and strong. Make sure you retract the scapula as you pull down the bar, and make sure the chest is up and lifted. Pull the bar to your chest. Exhale on the eccentric phase and inhale on the concentric. During this exercise, the hips should not move, so no rocking back and forth on the hips. As you can see, the shoulders are adducting and the elbows are extending. Therefore, the agonist of this exercise is the latissimus dorsi and the biceps. Next up is the leg press. So to start off the leg press, adjust the seat so that the knees are about a 90-degree angle. Place the feet approximately hip width apart and flat on the foot plate. Keep your hands on the handles and release the machine. Once the machine is released, push through the heels, keeping the chest up, the spine in neutral, and the scapula retracted. Inhale on the eccentric phase and exhale on the concentric. The hips are extending, the knee is extending, and the ankle is plantar flexing. Therefore, the agonists of this exercise are the quads, the vastus lateralis, intermedius, and medialis, and the gluteus maximus. Now for the overhead press. You may stand or sit for this exercise. If seated, adjust the backrest so it's slightly lower than vertical. Your feet are hip width apart and firmly planted on the ground. If standing, your feet are shoulder width apart in power position. Whether you're sitting or standing, the spine should always be in neutral, the scapula retracted, and the chest up and lifted. Keep the weight as close to the body as possible when lifting it up to starting position. Starting position, the elbows should be at 90 degrees, then slowly lift the weights above your head, but do not lock out the elbows at the top. During this exercise, the shoulders are abducting and the elbows are extending, therefore the agonists are the biceps and the medial deltoids. Now for tricep dips. Sit on the bench and position your hands shoulder width apart. Keep your chest up and lifted, the elbows loose, and the scapula retracted and depressed. Slide your butt off the bench and with your feet extended out in front of you. Remember, the further the lever length, the harder the exercise. Therefore, adjust the positioning of your feet accordingly. Slowly bend your elbows and lower your body to the floor, keeping your back as close to the bench as possible. Go down until the elbows are at a 90-degree angle, then press down on the bench to push your body back up. If your legs are fully extended, that means the exercise is harder. If you want a little bit of an easier option, bend at the knees. This will shorten the lever length and make the exercise a little bit easier. During this exercise, the shoulders are slightly extending, but the main focus will be on extending the elbow, which will work your triceps brachii. The squat is a very functional exercise, but it is a very easy one to do incorrectly. Make sure you perfect the body weight squat before moving on to weighted squats. To perfect this exercise, position your feet at about shoulder width apart with your toes pointing forward. Keep your chest lifted, scapula retracted and depressed, and your hands straight out in front of you to help maintain balance. Slowly push your butt back and lower your hips like you're going to sit in a chair. Maintain neutral back and keep your weight on the heels of the foot. Lower down so your thighs are parallel to the floor and your knees are over your ankles. Then squeeze your glutes and press your weight back up. Again, pushing through the heels, not the toes. And make sure you're not locking your knees out at the top. There are 3 joints moving in this exercise. The hips are extending, the knees are extending, and the ankles are plantar flexing. Therefore, the main movers are the vastus group, the soleus, and the gluteus maximus. The lunge, another very functional exercise that can improve your balance and coordination while improving your strength at the same time. To do a proper lunge, keep the chest lifted, the scapula retract and depressed, and take a big step forward with one leg. Lower the hips to the ground until both knees are bent at about 90-degree angle. Then rise up, maintaining most of the weight on the front leg. As always, the knees should not pass the ankles at any part of the range of motion. The hips should be squared at all times as well. During a lunge, you are extending the hip and the knee. Therefore, the agonists will be the gluteus maximus and the vastus group. For a calf raise, stand at the edge of a step with the balls of your foot firmly on the flat surface. Keep the heels level and press the balls of the foot into the floor to raise the body. Focus on contracting the calf muscles, then slowly lower the heels, but don't lower too far as this will cause pressure on the Achilles tendon. The ankle joint is plantar flexing, therefore it is working the gastrocnemius and the soleus muscles of the calves. If you want to focus more on the gastrocnemius, keep the knees straight. If you want to focus more on the soleus muscle, slightly bend at the knees in order to work this one out. Looking at the dead book exercise, you may not think it's a very difficult exercise, but wait until you try it. Grab a mat and lie C-spine. Bend your knees and bring them up to about a 90-degree angle, making sure your shins are parallel to the floor and your toes are pointed up. Maintain the back in neutral, the ribs and the posterior superior iliac spine, the 2 bumps on the back of your pelvis, on the floor. It is very important that your back does not arch. If this happens, it means that you are no longer engaging your transverse abdominis. Lay your hands flat on the floor beside you and hold this position. If you want a more intense exercise, alternate dropping one leg to the floor, but keep the knees bent at a 90-degree angle. For even more of an intense exercise, maintain the first position but lift the arms in the air. Even more intense, lift your arms to beside your ears and hold. Even more intense, straighten one leg out and hold. And for the most advanced way to execute this exercise is if you move your hands beside your ears and straighten both legs and hold this position. This is a very effective exercise for the transverse abdominis. Back extensions involve a lot of setup and adjusting before you mount yourself onto the machine. You want to make sure that the back of your ankle is on the pad and the crease in your hips is directly on the pad. Once the adjustments are done, cross your arms across your chest and contract the transverse abdominis and lower the upper body to about a 90-degree angle. Then slowly raise it back up into neutral, keeping the head in line with the spine. The key is not to hyperextend the back at the top. Focus on elongating instead of arching. The main mover in this exercise are the erector spinae and the quadriceps lumborum. The push-up is another very functional exercise that works the upper body very efficiently. Start with your arms out by your side and your hands at shoulder level. Lead with your chest and slowly lower down. You must engage the transverse abdominis during this entire exercise to prevent your back from arching. Do not lock out the elbows on the way up. Inhale on the down phase and exhale on the up phase. If this variation is too difficult for you, lower to your knees. By shortening the lever length, it makes it a bit easier to execute. Since you are horizontally adducting the shoulders and extending the elbow, you are working the pectoralis major, the anterior deltoids, and the triceps. For the bent over dumbbell row, grab a dumbbell and a bench and place one bent leg on the end of the bench and one arm on the other. The other leg should be planted firmly on the ground. Keeping your back parallel to the ground, take your free hand and grab the dumbbell. Keep the chest up, the scapula retracted and depressed, and the spine in neutral. Pull the weight towards your chest, keeping the elbow and the upper arm close to your rib cage. Throughout this entire exercise, keep the core engaged to prevent rotating of the spine. The elbow is flexing, the shoulder is extending, and the shoulder girdle is retracting. So the main movers in this exercise are the latissimus dorsi in the inferior and middle trapezius, with help from the posterior deltoids, biceps, and rhomboids. The hamstring ball curls. Lie spine with your ankles on the exercise ball and place your arms to the side to help you balance. Keep your core engaged, the hips square, and lift the butt so the spine is in neutral. Slowly roll the ball towards you, keeping your weight on the scapula, and return to the starting position. If you want to make it harder, lift one leg up to the sky and use the other one to pull in the ball. Really make sure you do not drop one hip to the side when doing single leg curls. This exercise is great for the hamstring and the gluteus maximus, and it will also work your core as you will need it for stabilization. The deadlift is yet another very functional exercise, but very high risk, so perfect form here is very important. Walk to the bar and stand with your feet about shoulder width apart and have about mid-foot under the bar. Bend the hips at the knee at the same time with the spine in neutral, chest up, and the scapula retracted and depressed. Grab the bar with your grip about shoulder width apart and take a deep breath. Inhale and pull the bar up, keeping the bar as close to your body as possible. On the up phase, focus on contracting the hamstrings and gluteus maximus. Squeeze the gluteus at the top, but do not look out the knees. Then slowly drop the weight back down to the ground. Again, keeping the bar as close to you as possible. During this exercise, the hips are extending and the knees are extending. Therefore, the gluteus maximus and the quadriceps femoris are the main movers of this exercise. For the Superman, lay face down on a mat with the arms outstretched. Keep your hands and arms straight throughout the entire exercise and raise one hand and the opposite leg about 4 to 5 inches off the ground. Hold for 5 seconds and then return to starting position and do the same on the other side. Avoid hyperextension of the back by focusing on elongating the body. This exercise will use the erector spinae muscles. Ab rollouts are a very difficult exercise, so make sure you know your core is strong enough to withhold the intensity of this exercise. Hold the ab roller with both hands and kneel onto the floor. Place it in front of you so that your hands and knees are all in a kneeling position. Slowly roll out so your body is in a straight position. It is imperative that you keep your core tight. Do not hyperextend the back or drop the head. Keep your body in neutral. After a pause at the bottom, start pulling yourself back up to starting position. This is a great workout for the abdominals if done correctly, but if done incorrectly can cause many injuries. The pull-up is a great exercise for the muscles in the back, but does require a great deal of strength to execute. If you can't do a pull-up by yourself, some gyms offer assisted pull-up machines. Unfortunately, this facility does not offer one. To start a wide grip pull-up, use a pronated grip and keep the elbows slightly bent. Make sure the chest is up, the scapula is retracted and depressed, and the spine is in neutral. Pull yourself upwards until your elbows are pointing down, and then slowly lower back down. In this exercise, the shoulders are adducting and the elbows are flexing. Therefore, this exercise works the latissimus dorsi, the mid and lower trapezius, the biceps, and the brachialis. For the landmine shoulder press, kneel down on your knees and grab the bar with both hands right at the end. Put your hands together to create a solid base and let the top of the bar rest in your palms. Slightly leaning towards the bar, start pushing it away from you. Keep the chest up, the scapula retracted and depressed, and the spine in neutral during the entire exercise, and do not lock out the elbows at the top. Make sure your core is engaged so you're not rocking your body back and forth. And you should feel this exercise in your pectoral muscles and your anterior deltoids. The last exercise I have for you are donkey kicks. Get on all fours on the mat, hands under shoulders, knees under hips. Keep the spine in neutral, the scapula retracted and depressed, the chest up, and the hips squared. Keeping the right knee bent 90 degrees, flex the right foot and lift the knee to hip level. Lower the knee without touching the floor and lift again. Contract the abdominals to maintain stability and to prevent the back from arching. Once you're done your sets, switch legs and repeat. This exercise will focus on your gluteus maximus and your hamstring muscles.